right, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down the game we love each and every day with the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the industry. And, of course, you've got to put up with some analysis from myself. What I am intending to do from now through eternity, or at least through the rest of my lifetime, would be to respond to your viewer comments each and every week. So I'm still working out what my schedule is going to look like during the football season, but I'm going to get to that and get that out to you as soon as possible. What our schedule here in regards to live streams and what content you can expect and when you can expect it every week, every day during the college football season, as we are just 8 days and 6 hours away from college football. That, of course, happening in Orlando, Florida. Miami versus Florida, 7:30 Eastern time on a Saturday night, the 24th. Then, of course, everybody will be in play the next Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday from that August 29th all the way through Labor Day. And, of course, let's not forget Arizona and Hawaii playing on the island later that night on the 24th. We'll be broadcasting live and on taped delivery from Orlando over the weekend next weekend. 8 days and 6 hours away. Here are some viewer comments, and again, throughout the season, I would like to establish a specific time each and every week in which I will address viewer comments, so listen up for yours. I'm just going to take them right from the top. So I've got all the comments of all the videos listed, and the most recent one coming from Robert Madco. Maybe I should have my contacts or glasses on. Robert Madco on the Penn State video, our season preview of the Nittany Lions. Penn State is going to surprise a lot of people this year, saying it here that Sean Clifford will lead the Big Ten in passing. Is that passing yards, Robert? Sean Clifford is supposed to be a much better downfield passer than Trace McSorley. People don't necessarily understand that if Sean Clifford can grasp the offense and make the right decisions, that Penn State's passing game should be much improved this year. All right, we got Hollins D chiming in on our Ohio State Buckeyes live show from Wednesday night. What happened this week, Mark? Don't let your day job interfere with your real work. Less than 2 weeks until football starts. It's real now. All hands on deck. Yes, sir. My apologies to Hollins D. I'll get right to it. I think we only produced like 3 videos per day in the last week. So we've been slacking off just prior to kickoff here in 2019. My apologies. I will do much better. Please forgive me. Row the boat nice, Camber. Camber? Defense is the most important thing. Replying to our Ohio State live show on Wednesday night. Our D-line is stacked. We also have an abundance of safeties. Capitalized stacked and capitalized safeties. We have an abundance of safeties, meaning Coach Day should watch, observe, and if he sees the linebackers are struggling again, move maybe Brendan White or Jordan Fuller up to outside linebacker. Call it the bullet if you want, but you need guys with instincts and a love for tackling at linebacker, and those two have it. Very astute comment by Row the Boat Nice Camber. I enjoy that one. Yes, Brendan White really emerged right around the Nebraska game throughout the rest of the season in 2018. Jordan Fuller's an excellent player. Those guys like to hit. They got a nose for the football. And if the linebacking core, which has been the weakest unit on the field now going back to 2017 for the past 2 seasons, cannot step it up and play Ohio State caliber football, then that may not be the worst idea in the world. I don't know how it fits schematically, but I know that those guys have the ability, especially in today's game when linebackers are not 6'3", 250, clogging the middle, clogging the running lanes, that they have to be able to cover in space and move from sideline to sideline and pick up the tight ends, the backs, and some of the slot receivers at times, that might be a justifiable move if the linebackers can't step up this year. Steve Yelvington in response to our Florida State live show on Wednesday night, which featured Jason Parker from Chop Chat. So Shane is either taking a shot at moi. That's the only French you'll get out of me, and that was a bit of an embarrassment in and of itself. But Shane was either speaking to me or speaking to Jason in stating, this guy is a goon. Florida should be allowed a couple of cupcakes, talking about Florida's scheduling. They have two top 7 teams and 2 to 3 top 15 or so in these schedules. Florida State plays one ranked team. Florida State lines up against Boise State. Florida State obviously has the Clemson game, and then nobody else that they're playing, at least as of right now, preseason, is ranked. So to your point, I don't know exactly what the hit was, what the take was that so offended Shane concerning our thoughts on Florida scheduling, or maybe Jason's thoughts on Florida scheduling. But there's no question that Florida plays a more difficult schedule than Florida State. Florida State had a rather difficult schedule, ranked very high last year. Much of that had to do with the Notre Dame game, and much of that had to do with probably their other assignment in addition to Miami last year in the Coastal Division. I don't remember who they played. Let me figure it out. Florida State played Virginia Tech. This year they've got Miami and I believe Virginia. So they may be playing the two best teams in the Coastal. The Coastal. 912 Kane Finn wishing Cam a happy birthday. We got Nick Jimenez. I thought it would be Tate because the media hype machine talking about the selection of Jaron Williams as the Miami starting quarterback and our video on that. Jaron is the most gifted, and I think he will be far more consistent than the other two. I really like the choice by Manny. And Dan, I think this kid will be a really good one. Okay. Braylon Jackson. So if Cam do not follow the teams they play against, how can you definitely have an educated opinion on how your team stacks up against others? That makes your analysis against the Gators and others mute. When we respond to comments that other people state, we need to make sure that we first take the comment verbatim and actually understand and replicate the words that were stated. Number one. Number two, the context. Number three, anything else that may fill in the gaps. And you don't even need to fill in the gaps or take in the context here. Cam stated, I remember it explicitly, that Cam stated that he doesn't focus on Miami's opponents until the week of the game. Next week on Wednesday night, this will be August 21st, I believe. Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, we'll have a complete rundown of the Florida game against Miami. And then actually as a bonus, this Monday, the 19th, 1 o'clock Eastern time, listen up, 1 o'clock Eastern time, 90 minutes live, Cam and I breaking down the Miami-Florida game. 90 minutes live, 1 o'clock Eastern time, this Monday, the 19th. In addition to Wednesday night's show. So again, when you respond to somebody or you criticize what somebody has to say, please, first and foremost, at least get the statement right. Luke Godwin. We shall see just how great Florida State is when they play Clemson in Death Valley this year. I think Clemson is favored to beat this joke of a team 90%. In response to our Miami live show, Manuel Soto says Lorenzo Lingard is not a 2. Once healthy, it will be clear he's the best back on the team. As we discuss the running backs and Robert Burns' supposed contribution if he ever gets healthy. And, of course, Lorenzo Lingard and Cam Harris. Shane Westwood. In response to Kevin Noon from Rivals' comment about, or it might have been Steve Hellwagon's comment concerning Clayton Thorson at Northwestern being a better quarterback than possibly Hunter Johnson. a better and more known commodity for sure. So Shane comments here, 1604. He, I believe Steve, scoffs at the idea that Johnson could be as good as Thorson because Thorson has tons of Northwestern passing records. But, of course, Fields can be better than Haskins, who has all the Ohio State quarterback records. Maybe he personally doesn't think Fields will surpass Haskins, but a lot of the fans seem to think so. Okay, the only thing I can say there is that Clayton Thorson was an above-average college quarterback who's certainly getting his shot in NFL camp right now. I forget who he's with. But Clayton Thorson has that chance to play for a long time in the NFL, most likely not as a starter. He was a decent collegiate quarterback. He was a top 30 quarterback in the nation. Hunter Johnson was a 5-star. Hunter Johnson may never accomplish what Clayton Thorson did at Northwestern, but don't be surprised if he's much better than Clayton Thorson. And if I had to put money on it, I would say that Hunter Johnson will be better than Clayton Thorson. He has a higher ceiling and a better skill set. GMC DBB. This in response to our Ohio State live show. The question from Bash specifically cited Northwestern's bye week as a cause for concern. None on the panel mentioned that, nor did they mention that Ohio State also was a bye week immediately preceding that game. They probably avoided that part of the question because it is invalid. The only reason I scoffed at the question to some degree is because, of course, Northwestern could beat Ohio State. That doesn't mean that they will beat Ohio State, but they are certainly in that same tier as Iowa was in 2017 and Purdue in 2018. They're most likely going to be a 7 or 8 win team that is certainly at home capable of beating Ohio State, especially on a Friday night at Ryan Field. I don't necessarily expect it at this point. I will give Northwestern right now about a 20% chance of winning that game. But that's fairly likely. 2 times in 10 that Northwestern could beat Ohio State. All right, I like this complaint from Athletic Dasshole. In response to our Ohio State live show last night, he says, my only complaint is that this wasn't 3 hours long. Athletic Dasshole, we appreciate your support, your contribution, and everything you do right here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Retro Bud, Tough Borland is not good enough to be a 3-year starter at Ohio State. I understand your take, Retro, but Tough Borland most likely will be a 3-year starter at Ohio State. Larry Brown, Florida plays the 3rd FCS team, Florida State. Michael Hires, Florida State starts 1 and 2. John Wick, why is Mark going so hard at my boy from Chop Chat? Oh man, I'm getting labeled here by Iran, as a Willie Tag hater. Come on. I have merely pointed out the facts that this team was ill-prepared, not prepared, poorly put together, and just not capable of competing most of the time last year, and that was completely uncalled for, regardless of the shape that Jimbo Fisher left the roster. It's still a top 15 roster, and for them to finish not just 5-7, but to not be able to compete in almost any of those games was deplorable. It was a deplorable coaching job by Willie Taggart that in week 12 that they still couldn't line up correctly, that they still couldn't do simple things that had nothing to do with the talent level on the other side of the football. It had everything to do with them not being prepared in week 12. Them scoring 3 points against a Virginia Tech defense in week 1 that we thought, oh, maybe this Virginia Tech team and defense is going to be much better than we anticipated. No, they sucked, but Florida State sucked worse and could only score 3 points against Virginia Tech in week 1. Deplorable showing week after week after week. I've said it many times. The only 3 decent games that they played the entire season was a 1-point win against Boston College, a 3-touchdown win against Wake Forest, and a 1-point loss against Miami. That's it. The other 9 games were deplorable, awful, horrific performances by Florida State, and Willie Taggart was responsible, and is mostly to blame. Does that make Willie Taggart incapable of running this program? I don't know yet. I know that the first year was not a good showing. I know some people have responded by saying Jimbo Fisher's last team went 7-6, and he didn't even show up for the bowl game, so he only went 6-6. And Willie Taggart only did one game less in the win column than Jimbo Fisher. There was no comparison between the performance of those two teams in 2017 and 2018. No comparison between the performance of those two teams if you look common opponent by common opponent between the Florida State schedule in 2017 and how well they competed against everybody. I think they had one blowout loss. They went to Boston College and looked awful and lost by 5 touchdowns. Other than that, they competed against everybody, even Clemson, even Alabama. That team last year was completely incapable of competing against anybody with a pulse. Micah, we need to make Tate the Taysom Hill of Miami. He can play a role. Yes, that would be the role. That would be the role, and even though it takes one of the greatest quarterbacks in history off the field in Drew Brees on a regular basis, it is working in New Orleans, and I will trust Sean Payton because the productivity of their offense has not suffered since they have figured that out and implemented Taysom Hill in New Orleans. If you told me before I ever saw it and saw the productivity, I would have said you do not take Drew Brees off the field, except maybe if it's 3rd and goal at the half-yard line and you want to run that Wildcat. Otherwise, I would have said, no, this is a bad idea. But Sean Payton knows what he's doing, and he is implementing it to a T while still keeping one of the greatest passers of all time engaged, involved, and out there 90-some% of the time to throw for 5,000 yards and should have been in a Super Bowl. So if they can figure out how to be as effective with it there at Miami, Micah, I think you've got a point with Tate Martell taking on the Taysom Hill approach there at Miami. Devin Brown. So wait, Florida has the number 4 toughest schedule in the country, and this dude is complaining that Florida's schedule is too easy. I would not be the dude. Jason Parker would be the dude, apparently. That's a joke. FSU plays in the worst conference in America, so they need to schedule tougher games. I can't stand when media members just regurgitate dumb information because they're too lazy to do some actual research. I rated the Florida schedule roughly the 4th best in the country, just like whatever source Devin went to here to rate the Gators schedule as number 4 in the country. I don't have my rankings in front of me, but I had them somewhere in the 4 to 7 range. It's an extremely difficult schedule. Florida has to play Auburn out of division and LSU, as they do every year, out of division. The SEC Eastern Division, I don't want to hear any more stupid jokes about the SEC East. That's all circa 2014. The SEC East might be the 2nd best division in college football. It's certainly in the top 3. So Florida has to deal with their own division, LSU, Auburn, and games against Miami and Florida State. It's a brutal schedule that the Gators contend with here. And a lot of comments back and forth on that. Florida and Florida State fans going back and forth on the scheduling topic. All right. Polo Kid, in response to our Florida State live show last night. The Taggart slander is premature. I like how Willie is trying to restore the winning culture to Florida State with talented athletes who want to be a part of change. The current recruitment surge isn't a fluke. Well, it's certainly a recent surge, a very recent surge. We need to see this season play out because Florida State, as much as any other program in the country, any other team in the country right now, is a wild card. 5-7, 10-2. And I'll have my prediction coming up this Wednesday. But Florida State is one of the biggest wild cards in the country. I'll put Nebraska in that category. I'll put a Missouri to a certain extent in that category. A TCU that's really dependent on quarterback play. and that being an unknown for TCU, but the rest of the team being very good, very talented. Man, there aren't many teams that I can come up with out there that I'm thinking, I really don't know what I'm going to get out of them. UCLA would be one to a certain extent. And again, Nebraska. I don't even put TCU. I just think that the quarterback could make them. If they get reliable, dependable quarterback play out of TCU out of their 4 or 5 quarterback competition, that they could be really good, and that could vault them to the top of the Big 12. But if they don't, and they get marginal play, then they're going to be an 8-4, 7-5 type team again. But Florida State, wild card. That's why yes, the slander against Willie Taggart's career is premature. Let's see it play out. But the slander against, and it wouldn't be slander, it's verifiable. The poor job that he did in 2018 is obvious. All right, Iran Whitaker. Come on, Iran. You've not been watching me very long, or you've not been listening for you to comment that Mark Rogers and Florida fans will say it's a fluke and fake. I'm guessing if they have a decent year at Florida State. Okay. My only knock on Florida State football is connected directly to Willie Taggart's poor performance as a head coach in not preparing this team week after week after week after week, even to week 12 against Florida. They were not prepared. They were so much more talented and should have been competitive against Syracuse, NC State, and on and on and on throughout their schedule. Virginia Tech. Look at the teams that Florida State could not just fail to beat, but couldn't be competitive against. That is a poor coaching job. Other really good coaches have, in single seasons, done a poor job. This is not a slam against Willie Taggart's entire career. He did a nice job in turning around Western Kentucky and South Florida. We'll never know what would have happened at Oregon. He pretty much took a team that you would expect should go 7-5 and went 7-5 at Oregon. So his 1-year stint at Oregon is pretty much a B or a C, or however you want to rate it. He basically got out of that team what should be expected. It was a team that had gone to a national championship 2 years earlier, won 9 games a year earlier, then had a 4-8 drop-off, and then rebounded under Willie to go 7-5. But that's a 7-5 roster at Oregon in 2017. That was a 7-5 roster. He went 7-5. It was a reasonable coaching performance. This 2018 performance was horrific, but that doesn't wipe out his accomplishments and his resume and track record for his entire career. I'm just stating the obvious, that the performance by Willie Tagg in 2018 was awful. Do we call him Willie Tagg? I got a Willie Tagg here, so I'm going to go with Willie Tagg. I didn't know that was a thing. All right, we've got a Florida fan all fired up about Cam Underwood's comments during our Miami show last night. Rob Scarborough, Cam is an idiot. This knucklehead thinks Miami's corners can cover our receivers. Also, that their running back coming in is better than DeMarcus Bowman. This guy clearly doesn't watch football outside of Miami. Typical Miami fan, I suppose. Okay, well, he's not a typical Miami fan. He's very knowledgeable, but you can only be so knowledgeable about so much. I have a cursory knowledge of the entire nation, focused on a number of programs in particular. Cam Underwood covers Miami. Yes, he's focused on Miami, but he knows his football, and he has the perspective right now that those Florida receivers will get locked down by Miami's corners. Rob, I understand your point. Florida has the second or third best wide receiver core in the SEC. It's extremely good. Love Tyree Cleveland. I think he's going to have a bounce back year. Van Jefferson's at the top of his game. Kadarius Toney. They are really good at wide receiver. Yep, I totally understand. I think Miami's going to have issues covering Florida's wide receivers. I don't think the secondary is deep enough. I don't think it's strong enough past Trajan Bandy to really match up that well. So if Felipe Franks has time to throw, and he can make time to throw, he's that type of athlete, he is going to have some open receivers downfield. That's what could break this game open from being an extremely close game, is that Florida has the quarterback. I know Felipe Franks is not elite, and people are going to laugh when I talk him up a little bit here, but the kid threw, 24 touchdowns and 6 picks last year? He had a really nice season. Really improved, really developed, and now Dan Mullen's had him for another year. He may be a top 10 to 15 quarterback this year. And if he plays like it in game one, maybe this game isn't as close as many, including me, expect it to be. Dennis Foster, poor Willie T. FSU is going to chew him up and spit him out. He is in way over his head in Tallahassee. He looked it in year one. I also know another coach, Derek Mason at Vanderbilt, who looked it like a deer in headlights in year one. Lost his first game to Temple by 4 scores. Was embarrassed at home. Now, the expectations and the microscope at Vandy is nothing close to what it is at Florida State. Willie Taggart knows how to coach football programs and knows how to lead a football program. He did it at 2 other places. I know technically 3 other jobs, but he basically built a culture and a program at 2 other places, Western Kentucky and South Florida. There's a difference at Florida State, but there are still many of the same and most of the same components to building a football program anywhere at the collegiate level. So Willie Taggart, I still think there's more in the bank in Willie Taggart's favor to have a compelling reason or argument that he's going to be successful at Florida State than the other. I simply point out, and the Florida State fans who believe me to be a hater, and I hate that term, is that I'm simply pointing out the facts that Willie Taggart did a poor job in 2018. We could look at Bobby Bowden's tenure. We could look at Joe Paterno's tenure and point out bad coaching seasons from them. 2 of the 5 to 10 greatest of all time. It happens. We'll see. We'll see. Florida State has the talent to win 8 or 9 games. We'll see. They should win 8 or 9 games against an pretty easy schedule. I'm not going to say it's that easy. I don't remember where I ranked it. The rankings are out there. I've produced all the videos ranking all the Power 5 schedules from number 70 all the way up to number 1. And I know that Florida State's schedule I had ranked very high last year, not so much this year. I think it was in the 25 range. Still in the top half in the nation. Luke Godwin, responding to our Florida State live show. Clemson fan here. Please, Florida State, you have replaced Wake Forest. Never thought I would live to see it. We need some top 25 teams in the ACC. Everybody is laughing at us. Luke, you stated it very well. I'm very intrigued by your writing style in regards to how you use your spacing as well. You write like a poet. It looks like poetry, and it almost reads like poetry, Luke. Well done. Yes, Florida State, you become Wake Forest. And a poor version of Wake Forest this past season. So this would be a down year for Wake Forest. 2018 would be a down year for Wake Forest, a team that has won, not just gotten to 3 postseasons in a row, but won the bowl games 3 years in a row against some pretty good competition like Temple, Memphis, Texas A&M. So Florida State right now is a poor version of Wake Forest. And I know, as of August 31st, everything that happened last year is going to be a distant memory, and it should be, unless they didn't fix the problems, and we see the same thing against Boise State that we saw last year against Virginia Tech on opening night. Yes, everybody is laughing at the ACC as well. They should. But again, that could end on opening night. We've got, let's see, who gets to prove in week 1 that the ACC is better than what it was in 2018 and will not continue to be a joke and the worst of the Power 5 leagues. And I certainly had the Pac-12 and the ACC ranked very closely, but gave the nod to the ACC based on you-know-who. So in week 1, without looking at it, Florida State's got the matchup against Boise State. Who else is playing a tough non-conference game in week 1? North Carolina takes on South Carolina. That would not be a game that anyone would expect the ACC to win. Is that it? Clemson plays in conference against Georgia Tech. I don't think NC State has anybody until week 2 when they take on West Virginia. Louisville's got Notre Dame. They're not going to win that game. And nobody's going to expect it. So if Louisville gets blown out and North Carolina loses to South Carolina, that's not going to be a black mark against the ACC. What's going to be the black mark is going to be if Florida State does not take care of business as a favorite close to home against Boise State. Georgia Tech, Pitt, North Carolina, Virginia Tech. I don't think there are any other big games out there without looking at the schedule. Let's look at the schedule. No, let's not look at the schedule. Captain Trips, great content. Love the countdown clock. And we thank so much for the viewer, Justin Firm, who purchased our countdown clock for us. Justin contacted me and said, Mark, you need a countdown clock. And I said, yeah, whatever. Sure, that would be nice, but it's not necessarily on my radar, not something that I have the time to invest in looking at countdown clocks. And Justin said, I want to get you a countdown clock. And he looked it up. He sent me the link. He purchased it, found it for me, and laid out the funding for our countdown clock that we're going to use throughout the season. We're going to line that up for the next college football game all the time. Pretty much all the time. Thank you, Justin. John Tempest, in response to my prediction record video. So what I did a few days ago was I produced a video that you can check out all my prediction records going back to 2010 or 11. I laid out my prediction record against the spread, against the money line, both in college and the NFL, during postseason play, during the bowls and the National College Football Playoff, against the spread and against the money line, just to say, this is what it is. This is what it's been. It's all for you to verify. It's all on YouTube. Time-stamped. There it is. I can't hide behind anything. You go to these various betting websites where these guys claim to pick 75% against the spread or whatever they claim, and you have no idea. Unless you sit there for an entire football season and track their records, they could say anything they want. I can't. I cut my weekly videos on just that, videos. And they're posted on YouTube. They are there to verify. So look up my predictions. Just go to my channel. I think you're right there right now. Just go to my channel and type in bowl predictions, week 10 predictions, whatever you want to put in. Just use, of course, college football predictions, and you can look at a plethora of videos and see how I did. But I did condense the record and the percentages and delivered it all to you to also set the stage for the announcement that I am doing my weekly predictions on the Voice of College Football community. So grab the link in the description section below next to the Voice of College Football community. Grab that link. You can sign up for a small fee that I would think, and many people have responded to me to say, Mark, regardless of the content that you give us there, we are simply showing our response to what you do on YouTube in providing 120 to 150 videos per month to support the channel and keep it going. But I will be posting my weekly predictions there. You're going to get my season predictions here next Wednesday, and you will get one pick from me per week. And that is attached to the fundraiser with Volunteer Roadshow, the other YouTubers, St. Jude's Hospital, and betnow.eu. That link's below that you see next to the hashtag SamStrong. And if you love to bet on football games, this is the best way to do it, is to put in the promo code MRTVCFB down in the link below next to the hashtag SamStrong, and you get an additional 50% added to your account, and it goes to a good cause. But in regards to my weekly predictions, again, another description link below next to the Voice of College Football Community in quotes. Grab that link, sign up, get my weekly predictions, and also what I really want to do, and I've attempted 7 or 8 times, there are 7 or 8 live streams there posted at our Voice of College Football Community, is I want to bring you guys on to talk college football with me. That was the response I got from you when I reached out to 20 or 25 of you to say, what can I do better, differently? What would you like to see me add to the channel? And what you guys said was, we would love to be able to be like guests and to come on and talk college football directly with you. And I said, absolutely, let's do it. So I've provided that opportunity 7 or 8 times, and 2 people have done it. So I would like to build this up to a situation in which once a week, we're doing at least an hour live stream where I am rotating you guys on constantly, and we're discussing college football together. And maybe I have 3 or 4 of you on at the same time, and we're just kicking around college football and having a good old time. That's the thought. And finally, John Tempest, along those lines of my prediction record, says, I gathered that trying to profit betting against the spread is a fool's errand. Mark was marginal against the spread over the years. You and I won't be. John, as I stated here, that's why they have all the big tall buildings and the fancy lights in Vegas. They aren't losing money. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Thank you so much for the comments. They total 60,000 plus for the year to date. And of course, we're close to college football season, just 8 days away. So I'm sure the comments will increase. And the ones I can't get to, I apologize, but I get to as many as possible. And this, I want to become a weekly staple of the channel to respond to your viewer comments. So we will find a time, and I'll be announcing a live stream schedule and an overall programming schedule here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, very soon. And we will see all of you next time.